You're watching Race to Power. I'm Shreya Upadhyay. On the show today, a look at how Donald Trump has been moving goalposts in Iran's case, from warning about war to taking a calmer approach. We decode with our guest today. And phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan has been set in motion, but the future of Gaza still remains uncertain as sticking points remain. Will Israel and Hamas move ahead with the US-backed plan? We break it down for you tonight. But first, a quick look at what has been happening as far as Iran is concerned. Well, it seems like Donald Trump might have directed not to strike Iran, at least for the time being. After weeks of threats and warnings, the American president has now said that killings in Iran are stopping. But Trump has repeatedly threatened to intervene if Iranian authorities continue to kill protesters. So does this mean that military action against Iran is off the table for now? Well, Trump says he's going to wait and watch.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it.
Does this mean military action is now off the table against Iran?
We're going to watch and see what the process is, but we were given a very good statement by people that are aware of what's going on.
Now, as per reports, Iran's envoy to Pakistan, Reza Amiri Mogdham, has claimed that Donald Trump has informed him that he did not intend to launch an attack on Iran. The US president also reportedly asked Tehran to exercise restraint and not attack American interests in the region. Remember, the Iranian diplomat disclosed that he received this information at about 1 a.m. Pakistan time on Wednesday. He stressed that Iranians had a legitimate right to protest, but blamed armed groups for carrying out killings in Iran. The rights group says crackdown on protesters in Iran has left thousands of people dead. Minutes after Donald Trump's comments, remember, the Iranian foreign minister Abbas Araghchi had appeared on America's Fox News, where he said that there would be no hangings today or tomorrow. He's also claimed that situation in Iran was now in control and warned Trump against attacking Iran.
My message is, do not repeat the same mistake that you did in June. If you try a failed experience, you will get the same result.
Earlier this week, the United States had withdrawn some personnel from American military bases in West Asia, including the Al Udeid base in Qatar. Iran had targeted the base in June last year in retaliation for American strikes on its nuclear facilities. In fact, a report citing 2 European officials said that a US military intervention could come in the next 24 hours. The report also cited an Israeli official who said that Trump has apparently decided to intervene, though the scope and timing remained unclear. Now remember, this report came before Donald Trump's latest comments. American media outlet News Nation has reported that the battleship USS Abraham Lincoln and its carrier strike group is being moved from South China Sea to West Asia. This deployment is expected to take nearly 1 week. Another report, based on the comments by an Iranian official, said that Tehran had asked American allies in the region to prevent Washington from attacking Iran. Iran reportedly told regional countries, including Saudi Arabia, UAE and Turkey, that US bases in those countries will be attacked if United States targets Iran. Sources also said that Saudi Arabia has already informed Iran that it will not allow its airspace or territory to be used to attack it. Meanwhile, Iran has closed its airspace for hours. The order exempted international flights to and from Tehran, provided they received prior approval. Several airlines have cancelled or rerouted flights to Tehran in the recent days. In fact, India's Indigo and Air India Airlines have said that some of their international flights were impacted by Iran's airspace closure. Earlier this week, Germany warned its airlines against entering the Iranian airspace. Trump also seemed to cast doubt on supporting Reza Pahlavi, the son of the former Shah of Iran. In an interview, the US president said that Pahlavi seemed very nice, but expressed uncertainty over whether he would be able to muster support within Iran to eventually take over. However, U.S. Senator and Trump ally Lindsey Graham has met with the exiled Crown Prince, and in a video message, Graham said that it would be up to the citizens of Iran to decide who they pick as their next leader.
The protesters.
And for more on this, I'm now joined by Mr. Hafid Butleb. He's a geopolitical and international relations analyst. He's joining us live from Casablanca at the moment. Mr. Butleb, good evening. I want to start by asking you how you see Donald Trump's comments. He started with threats and warnings against Iran, a more aggressive approach. Now he seems to be saying that, look, Iran has said that they will not be killing protesters, so I'm not going to strike Iran. Do you see that as a dilemma on part of the United States, or do you see that as a clear strategy that they don't want to make things clear right now at the moment?
Yes, this could be. It could be that Donald Trump is seeking the surprise effect in case there would be any military escalation, and this intends to dissimulate your plans. You will not unveil plans in front of cameras if you want to strike hardly. But I think that overall, Donald Trump has been quite surprised by this unrest. And it's not only Donald Trump. All the observers are surprised by the scale and magnitude of the demonstrations in Iran, because the previous demonstrations that took place during the Masa Amini events, when this young student has been killed by the state police, most of people thought that regarding how far the authorities went in repression, that this would give the regime an immunity of 10 to 15 years. No one could have imagined that the Iranian youth and the Iranian people will take the street despite all the repression and executions that took place. So it's quite surprising what's going on. And the strategy deployed by America for the region have been drawn before these events. So no one could have imagined in January 26 such a big social and political now unrest in Iran. And therefore, the Americans are more now, as you can see, we have saw since 2nd of January, focusing on a Western hemisphere. This is now the new perspective of the national strategy of America. Western hemisphere Iran is not in the Western hemisphere. And therefore, the plan in the White House was, if in case of regime change in any country, that would have been more in Venezuela or in Cuba, but not in Iran. Regime change in Iran is a massive enterprise. It's going to take months. The Iranian regime is heavy. We are talking about a country of 93 million people, 1.7 million square kilometers, which is the half of India. So it's a big country, Iran, with 93 million people. And it seems for the Americans too heavy now to go for. So there are supports, verbal supports, but to go further, it seems to be quite tricky for them.
And so do you think, Mr. Butleb, that right now the Iranian regime and the government and the security forces are not letting their guard down, despite the fact that Donald Trump has softened a bit, despite the kind of back-channel talks that have been going on, which have led to Donald Trump saying that there has been assurance from the Iranian regime that they will not kill the protesters? In fact, the foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, was on Fox News where he said that we will not be killing protesters today or tomorrow. Do you think despite that assurance and despite the softening of stance on part of Donald Trump, Iran is not going to let its guard down?
Look, when Abbas Araghchi says there will not be executions today or tomorrow, this means explicitly that there will be after tomorrow executions. And that's it. The regime in Iran, unfortunately, is stubborn. Today, the regime actually pays the price of its intransigence in 2009, its aggressive rhetoric, its obsession with conspiracy theories. And today, the regime finds itself unable to do anything but repression. It is truly that I am sure that someone like Abbas Araghchi or any other member of the ruling elite in Iran could have a good faith, could be somehow sad of these thousands of people killed. But the problem, the very issue is that In Iran, the regime, the people who holds the power, they can't do anything, and they don't know to do anything but repressing, killing, executions. That's it. Full stop. So we must clearly understand that it is an inflexible and stubborn regime which has vehemently rejected any call for reform, and it will not start today.
So, Mr. Butleb, help me understand this then. If not the regime, there is Reza Pahlavi, who has been, trying to return to Iran. He's been supporting the protests as well, but there is no confirmation. He's met with Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy. But of course, you'll have to be on ground inside the country to understand the kind of support you have. What is Iran's next best option, if at all the regime change does happen?
Okay, the best option for the population of Iran is to carry on this unrest. However, as a Moroccan based in Morocco, I will not call people to go demonstrate on streets in Iran. They already demonstrate. They don't need my support. But it seems that today, as Trump said, it is slowing down. And if it is slowing down, you should know that the main policy followed by Tehran, the Islamic Republic leaders, is to the time strategy. The time strategy is always constantly trying to win time. And when Abbas Araghchi is now confirming that the executions and the massacres are slowing down, and maybe the situation is quite calm today on Thursday, he is in this time strategy.
Okay.
What's going to happen? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. These demonstrations are going to slow down because of the massive repression. Then they're going to extinct. And once they're going to extinct, the agents of the regime will go to look for the demonstrators and then to deploy unfurl the revenge. That's it. And that's what they need to do. So the only solution is a massive, even massive than the one that was ongoing, demonstrations with people taking the power in cities and implementing national transition councils in every city, or city transition councils. Then they're going to merge to create a national transition council. It has to be from bottom up and can't be top down, unfortunately, for the people of Iran.
All right, we'll leave it there. Let's wait and watch what happens in Iran in the next few days and weeks. And hopefully there'll be stability and peace soon in the West Asian country. Thank you very much, Mr. Hafid Butleb, for joining us on WION.
Thank you.
All right, let's shift our focus now to the Israel-Hamas war. Phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan is set in motion. The phase is supposedly to help the enclave transition from a ceasefire state to a demilitarized state. Now, as the future of post-war Gaza hangs in balance, the leadership of Hamas and other Palestinian groups have been discussing the implementation of the second phase in Cairo. The development is significant as the second phase involves disarmament of Hamas, a group that vowed to continue its armed struggle until the formation of a Palestinian state. The Palestinian militant group will have to lay down their weapons and also step back from the future governance of Gaza. Donald Trump's West Asia envoy, Steve Witkoff, has announced a technocratic administration. This body will oversee the governance and reconstruction of Gaza. It will be under the ambit of a board of peace led by the American president himself. Former Deputy Minister of the Palestinian Authority, Ali Shad, will lead this body. So far, Hamas has responded positively to these developments. It says that the move is a step in the right direction. However, there is no confirmation whether the group will lay down its weapons. In this phase, the state of Israel's occupation will also shift from the yellow line to the red line. The IDF will retreat, leaving Rafah and the border areas. However, the announcement of phase 2 does not mean that Israel will step back in the Gaza Strip immediately. Questions over Hamas's disarmament loom large. Israel's stance is also in the realm of uncertainty. The body of the last deceased hostage is yet to be found by Hamas. Under the peace agreement, Hamas was to release all hostages, living and dead. Previously, Israel had said that there will be no phase 2 negotiations until the body of the last hostage is released. In fact, speaking with the family of the deceased hostage, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu had called Phase 2 announcement a declarative move. This means that the sticking points still remain to be ironed out. Meanwhile, mediators, Egypt, Turkey and Qatar have all given a green light to the formation of the technocratic administration. Donald Trump has reportedly sent formal invitations to world leaders that he deems will be part of his peace board. As things stand right now, the declaration of Phase 2 of the deal is just this initial step towards a stabilized Gaza. All right, moving on. American President Donald Trump has issued a veiled warning to NATO, raising fresh questions about the alliance's limits. His stated interest in acquiring Greenland has put the spotlight on NATO's core principle of collective defense. And now the situation seems as if any move by United States to seize Greenland would directly test the alliance's credibility. Over the past year, Donald Trump has pressured NATO allies through threats and demands for change. His comments suggesting control of Greenland, even by force, have triggered alarm across Europe, with fears the move could fracture the transatlantic alliance. NATO allies agree that Greenland, a self-governing territory, has the right to decide its own future. Greenland's Prime Minister says the territory would choose to remain with Denmark rather than join the United States.
We are now facing a geopolitical crisis, and if we have to choose between the United States and Denmark here and now, we choose Denmark.
The comments came as American Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers at the White House. The sides agreed to form a committee to explore whether progress is possible, saying talks should continue face to face. After the meeting, the Danish Foreign Minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, said that a frank but also a constructive discussion took place with Rubio and Vance, but that a fundamental disagreement still persists. And soon after this meeting, Copenhagen announced that it is increasing its military presence in Greenland in coordination with allies. Denmark, which is responsible for Greenland's defense, warned that an attack would effectively end NATO.
From today and in the coming period, there will be an increased military presence in and around Greenland of aircraft, ships, and soldiers, including from other NATO allies. Security in the Arctic is of crucial importance for both the Kingdom of Denmark and NATO as a whole.
Europeans have sent its troops to Greenland. Among them, 15 soldiers are from France and one British officer who is headed to the Danish territory. This hastily convened military deployment comes right ahead of a planned larger exercise called Operation Arctic Endurance. This drill will involve soldiers, naval vessels and aircraft from Denmark and small numbers of unarmed or lightly armed personnel from Germany, France, Norway and Sweden. The dispute over the Greenland area comes at a sensitive moment for NATO. European members are stretched by support for Ukraine. And during this critical time, the rising divisions within the NATO is quite evident. Poland has now said that it will not deploy troops.
Today isn't really the time or place for a detailed analysis of the geopolitical and military consequences of a potential armed intervention by the United States in Greenland. It would be a disaster in a political sense, and from our point of view, I mean a conflict or an attempt to take over the territory of a country that is a NATO member by another NATO member state. And what's more, it's the United States. Well, that would be the end of the world as we know it, which has guaranteed our security for decades.
NATO allies often send troops to train in each other's countries. The American sanctions stations about 150 troops at Pituffik Space Base in northwestern Greenland. Allies, including the US, have pushed for years to increase joint exercises in the Arctic Circle. Our correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live on the broadcast from New York. Susan, this seems to be quite a challenging time for NATO, considering the fact that Donald Trump is not withdrawing his threats to Greenland. And the kind of unity that we've seen as far as military exercises and convergence is concerned on part of NATO reflects that, if not a direct confrontation, they are sending out signals to Donald Trump that, look, we are ready if you strike Greenland.
Yeah, the language is very triggering for NATO indeed, and puts NATO in a peculiar situation, considering the fact that what will it do? Aid another NATO member state to ultimately take over another NATO member state. And this really has raised concerns about the alliance's future and fractures within the alliance. Nonetheless, it appears that despite the fact that there is daylight between the Danish, the Greenlandic, and the US regarding the future of Greenland, they've decided to set up this strategic consortium amongst themselves, where representatives from each country are going to be talking regarding security and the future of Greenland. So at least the dialogue is continuing. On the other hand, I think it was very interesting to note that a congressional delegation, which is bipartisan, is going to be heading to Greenland on Friday and Saturday, is sort of expressing unity with the people of Greenland and, trying to diffuse what the Trump administration at least says that it plans to do. I think that'll be very interesting to watch, because that goes back to domestic politics here in the United States as well.
That's right. Susan, thanks very much for joining us at the moment and getting us the latest. We'll keep getting back to you as far as Donald Trump's statements on Greenland are concerned. All right, let's move on to the African continent, where elections are underway in Uganda. President Yoweri Museveni is looking to maintain his ironclad grip on power, while his challenger, Bobi Wine, is attempting to dethrone him for a second time. The ballots are being inked by the voters. However, the hiccup is turning out to be the nationwide internet shutdown. Accusations of repression, rigging and intimidation are all making rounds at the moment. Museveni has been president of Uganda since 1986, making him one of the longest-serving presidents in the African continent. 81-year-old Museveni is seeking a seventh term in office, and the internet blackout is ongoing. Rights groups have accused him of running a brutal campaign of repression against the opposition. Uganda's capital, Kampala, is swarming with security forces. Armored military vehicles and men in uniform are patrolling the city. The security forces also carried out a bike rally just ahead of the vote. To challenge Museveni, 43-year-old singer-turned-politician Bobi Wine is in fray. Calling Museveni a dictator, Wine urged election observers to report the truth about Uganda's electoral process.
We have told them that many times election observers come to Uganda only to legitimize the irregularities. And we've challenged them to report exactly what they observe, or else they will also turn themselves into enablers of the dictatorship.
Voting is currently underway and there are no reports of violence or distress. However, Uganda's playbook has a long history of post-poll violence, widespread protests, police crackdown and detention of opposition leaders. In 2011, Museveni's victory was followed by the opposition's walk-to-work protests. To put down the anger, the police used live ammunition in some cases. Dozens were killed and hundreds were arrested. The election aftermath of 2016 elections were almost the same in 2016. In fact, barring the additional tool of social media shutdown, opposition leaders were arrested and beaten. This time, opposition leader Besigye was also silenced by putting him under house arrest. The next elections were held in 2021, where a series of events were no different from last two times. Nationwide internet shutdown, post-poll protests were met with brutal crackdown and security forces killed at least 50 people. Successive elections show that Uganda is entering a crucial phase. Will the history of protests and crackdown repeat itself? Only time will tell. Let's shift our focus now to India, where the battle between the country's Enforcement Directorate and West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee is only deepening. The Supreme Court has issued a notice to the West Bengal Chief Minister and other officials of the state administration, including the DGP, Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police. This after the ED issued a plea alleging forceful interference and obstruction of its investigation at the premises of IPAC. A bench of Justices Prashant Kumar Mishra and Vipul Pancholi also stayed the FIR filed by the West Bengal Police against the ED officials who had entered IPAC premises to conduct their investigation. The top court has said that there are larger questions which emerge in ED's plea, and if these questions remain unanswered, it will lead to lawlessness. The court stressed that no agency has the right to interfere in election work, but when a central agency is acting bona fide to investigate a serious offence, shielding activities under the guise of party work should not obstruct its powers. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. As always, we'll keep getting you news and updates from across the world. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye.
This is our brand new edition of South India, a daily dynamic show that will capture the pulse of the southern Indian state.
By blending special stories of the day, breaking alerts and cultural vignettes.
From the 7 days.